What's going on, everybody? I'm back again with another install video, but as you can tell from the title, I'm doing something a little bit different today. I'm going to be working on my 2017 Yamaha FX Cruiser SVHO. I picked this up a couple of months ago, right before the COVID pandemic. Got a great deal on it. It only had 40 hours on it, had been freshwater only, but I ran into some issues right after I got it the first day, wouldn't run in the water. Traced it down about 2 days later and found out that I had a leak in the exhaust system that was choking everything out. Fixed that, and it had been running great ever since, but I noticed that I had a lot of cavitation out of the whole shot with it. It is a very big ski. Dry weight on these is 838 pounds, 18.5 gallons of fuel with oil in it puts you probably around 1,000 pounds. I didn't really do the math. You can figure it out if you want to. It's a very heavy ski, but it just didn't have a lot of power out of the hole. Top end wasn't really affected, so I contacted Dean's Team Performance. They're in South Florida, I believe in Orlando, and picked up their stage 1 kit. Did the impeller and wear ring. It's a 1318 Dean's Team pitched Solus impeller. I did a Worx pump wedge, new OEM wear ring, and I just got the Worx intake in today. We had some shipping hold up, had to come directly from the manufacturer, but I'm going to put that in today. Show you how easy it is to do it. But here she is. Very, very, very clean. I polished it, cleaned up a couple of things. It didn't really need a whole lot. It was very clean right when I got it. So I'm gonna pop the seats off and show you guys the engine bay. All right, seats are off. See the power plant in this thing. It's an 8.5-to-1 compression engine. It has an HKS factory supercharger on it. Like I said, these are very similar to like a small little car engine. Exhaust and everything's back here. You can see the PVC pipe where I had to, the end cap where I had to take off the factory resonators, where a rat got through the exhaust system and chewed a hole in it. And that's why it wouldn't run when I picked it up. But this thing was extremely clean. It only had 40 hours on it. Really, really, really clean. But so, the factory airbox here is what we're going to be taking out. Let me move around to the other side. Pretty simple to take out. You've got a 7mm hose clamp here and then one under the supercharger. We'll take this off, take the crankcase breather hose off, or PCV. You've got 2 10mm bolts here and 2 on the other side over here that you can't see that have to be taken out to remove it. The easiest way to do this is to go ahead and we'll disconnect here. Go ahead and pull this out of the way, and we'll get our 7mm, take these 2 off, and we'll remove this 90-degree hose off. Now that we've got our hose taken off, we've got 8 clamps here on the airbox that have to be lifted up. 2 on the top, 2 on the left side, 2 on the right side, and 2 on the bottom. Once those are removed, you'll take the air filter and the top of the airbox out, and then we'll be able to access these bolts a little bit easier on the other side, and then we'll remove the other portion of it. Now with the front airbox lid off, you can see why we're going to be upgrading to a larger intake, especially since we have the tune on it. This is very, very, very restrictive. Standard kind of paper filter, and I believe these are like $70, $80 just to replace the factory one. Not a very good unit. Factory applications, I'm sure it'll be fine, but we're going to be, like I said, upgrading ECU tune and stuff. You can get a better look at the internal design of this. It has a rubber hose here that the air comes in from the front, and then it actually has to hit the back side of the filter, and then your air draws out of the front. Then it goes through that 90-degree bend into the supercharger. Not a very efficient intake for what we're going to be doing. So now I'm going to remove the 2 10mm here, or 10mm bolts here, and 2 on that side. The back side of the airbox is removed, and you can get a little bit better of a look at the way the intake design is. Like I said, fine for factory applications. I don't think it's going to do what we needed to do here. So the next step would be to remove this panel here. I'm going to leave it in place because it actually holds up the water cooling line here that goes out to the left side of the hull. I don't really want it just kind of bouncing around in here. It has a zip tie here that holds it in place, so I'm just gonna leave it. It's not gonna hurt anything. It's not that heavy. I mean, it's plastic. If you're really worried about weight savings and you want to take it out and remove maybe 10 ounces or so, then by all means you can take it out. It's not going to hurt anything, but I'm just going to leave it in place as I like the hose being up here and not laying down, getting pinched, or just flopping around through the hole. Okay, here I've got the Worx intake all laid out. We've got our huge 4-inch inlet silicone hose here. Tapers down to 3 inches to fit the factory inlet on the HKS supercharger. These are the 2 hose clamps, one that's going to hold our coupler here to the hose, and then the filter to the coupler. This is our marine grade flame arrestor or spark arrestor. Filter, 4-inch inlet on that. This is our crankcase breather filter that's going to be used as well. Secondary hose barb for that. Our mounting bracket, and then this bolt here with the rubber dampener on it is going to be for a 2019 and up Yamaha FX. That is not going to be used in our application. And then I believe, yes, one more thing, this is a hose barb that's going to connect our PCB breather hose to our crankcase breather filter here. So let's get to it. This is going to go with the fitting facing down. You can see it has a little bit of play to it. That way if I need to twist it around or anything in there, I can. We're going to keep it vertical for the time being. Hose clamp, put it around, and then we'll lightly tighten it up. It's always a good idea to lightly tighten things before you put it in anywhere. That way if you need to make any adjustments, you can. More than likely we'll have to. Now we're going to put our hose clamp on our filter, put our filter on our coupler. I always like hose clamps to be orientated the same way, unless for whatever reason, room-wise, you have to move them a different way, but this is the way that I like to do it. Keeps it nice and clean. And we can place our factory clamp onto the bottom here. We're going to have to open that up just a little bit. Got our screw here. Our Loctite on it. The mounting bracket is going to go like this. This portion will be on top of the intake. That way if it has a slide or anything, you've got some adjustability to it. Now to install this, the mounting bracket is actually going to attach to, let's see if I can get a good view for you guys. This nut right here is going to need to be taken off. It's a 12mm, and that's where our bracket is going to attach to. And we're going to place our intake down into the hole. Okay, I've got everything in, and I've got the bracket lined up. Let me see if I can show you. It's kind of a difficult angle, but you can see how the bracket is flush with the hole. Now, I did have to pull the intake back out and adjust it a little bit. The top screw, if I can get you to see that,
kind of difficult to see back there. But I had to take the screw and or the coupler and turn it clockwise a little bit to where the top of the screw at a diagonal line would kind of go pointing in between the O and the R here, kind of at an angle like that. So once you put it in, the intake has to be twisted counterclockwise so that that bracket can sit flush and the filter can go over to the left side of the gas tank.
So now we're going to move on to our crankcase breather filter. We have the small filter here, hose clamp. These use a Phillips head, or it looks like a 6mm socket. I'm just going to use a Phillips head screwdriver. I'm going ahead and use the plastic barb to fit onto this hose. The barb that's included with this kit is a little too large. I really had to force it on there. I think they should revise it and have the standard size for the filter over here and then have a smaller one here, because this hose here, I think after prolonged use of that, if you were to ever sell the ski and try to put this hose onto the factory intake, it's just going to be too big and it's not going to seal properly, and you're going to get oil in the engine bay. So if you end up doing this, just be prepared for that hose to get stretched out, that if you ever need to go back to the stock intake for whatever reason and for it to have a good seal, you'll probably end up having to replace this hose. Not a huge deal. I don't intend going back to the stock one, but you never know. So I'm a real big stickler on hose clamps in the direction that they're going to go, and I like them to face away from anything. That way, you know, we don't have this big bulky side here that's going to go in and try to hit the engine or anything. Even though it's going to be clamped to here, it's going to be a lot easier to access from the outside than from the inside, in my opinion. That's just how I like to orient things. And this actually looks like it's a flathead here, so I'm going to have to go and change that screwdriver. But we'll go ahead and put our breather filter on here, snug all the way down, and we'll go ahead and tighten these clamps down. Okay, now we've got our PCV breather filter all together. We're going to use a zip tie to secure this to the engine cover mounting bracket here. I've removed the other three that are on here. I removed the engine cover. I don't really like the appearance of it, and I removed the other brackets because they're not needed for anything, so we're just going to be reusing this one here. So I'm going to actually mount the breather on top of the filter. I know a lot of people go underneath. I'm just going to do it on top. It's not going to be any higher than what the factory engine cover would be, so the seat's not going to affect it or anything like that. So go ahead, and I'm going to run this to where the actual clip is on the bottom, so it's not going to be exposed. You're not going to see it. It'll be nice and clean. And we're going to run this over the top of the barb that's still vacant, doesn't have any hose on it. It's the main point of it. Start our zip tie. Now if you've got a long enough zip tie, you can go ahead and start the zip tie and then run the filter through it, but these are a little short. I'm not sure that the filter would fit through. Once we get it in place, we'll go ahead and cinch it down. And once we have our zip tie in place, we'll go ahead and cut the excess off of the bottom. Now we're all done. Now we have a complete install of our Worx Yamaha FX intake. Now let's get it hooked up to the water line and give it a start and see how she sounds. Alright, it's been running for about a minute. Got it fired up. Hooked up to the water. Give it a couple revs, see what it sounds like. Good. a bad install. I think a couple of things could be changed on it. That's what I always think about certain things, especially when it comes to modifying vehicles and stuff. But overall, pretty happy with it. Not bad at all. So I'm supposed to be getting in a visible blow-off valve with a tile 50mm. It's a genuine tile, not the $50 one that he sells as an option, just an eBay one. So got to put that on here. I did have it out over the weekend. I had a different intake that I'd made, not 4-inch, it was 3-inch all the way. Got it out in the water. It was really hot this weekend. It was like 95, 96 degrees, and over a half a tank of fuel on it. Like I said, I did the impeller wear ring, the tune, the pump wedge, and I was running just a little crappy intake that I made at home. And it did 75, I believe it did 76 at one point in time. And that was with a GPS, just GPS on my phone. But this week, like I said, I'm doing the tile 50mm on it. I just did the intake on it, and I'll be doing a can-do GPS speedometer on it too, so I can get a little bit more accurate speed on it. So if I can see 78 mile an hour with it, I'll be pretty happy. The main issues I had is it was cavitating really bad. The wear ring specs and the impeller from the factory were just gone. I think the wear ring specs and impeller are supposed to be 0.35 to 0.45 millimeters. Within spec is 0.60. The impeller was really chewed up. I only have 62 hours on it now, and it had cavitated since I first got it, when it only had 40 hours. So the previous owner, he wrote it freshwater only, might have gotten to some bad stuff and it just chewed it up, but all that's gone. Now with the pump wedge on it and the impeller and the wear ring, just that alone, I mean, the ski and neutral trim will try to jump out of the water. I mean, it's actually pretty impressive. I'm really happy with it. For what I paid for this and what little bit of money that I've got into it right now, I couldn't be any happier with it. Yeah, there's Sea-Doos out of the box that make 300 horsepower and that are going to be faster than this one's stock, but this one's probably comparable to that now. So we'll see and get it on the water, try to get some 0 to 60s on it and see how much quicker. It was cavitating so bad before, the best that I could do is 6.4. Like I said, it's just a GPS app on my phone. 0 to 60 in 6.4 seconds was pretty poor. So hopefully it picked up a little bit of speed, and I'll go out and check that out with the same app and see what happens. So until next time, guys, I'll see you later.